With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. Attorney General Garth Wilkin champions further justice reform with judge-alone trials amendment. St. Kitts and Nevis advances stronger anti-gang legislation. The Honorable Samuel Duggins highlights progress across ministries. Biodiversity Alliance deal signed in Guyana. US $5.7 million CARICOM funding to boost St. Lucia's water infrastructure. Internationally, Netanyahu and Trump appear to abandon Gaza ceasefire negotiations. Now, the details. The National Assembly passed the Judge-Alone Trials Amendment Bill 2025, a measure aimed at improving the efficiency of the criminal justice system, enhancing fairness, and protecting the administration of justice from undue influence. Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Garth Wilkin, outlined the rationale and benefits of this key reform.
And what this bill aims to do, Madam Speaker, is to further our administration's commitment to modernizing and strengthening our justice system. The amendment is the precise and purposeful refinement and evolution of the Judge-Alone Trials Act number 20 of 2024, which this Honorable House passed last year.
The original act authorized judge-alone trials for serious high court cases without the traditional jury, drawing on regional best practices and international trends. Wilkin noted real-world challenges revealed the need for clearer guidance and discretion criteria. He presented illuminating statistics on the Act's early implementation.
You allow me to start with some statistics from the High Court over the past 10 months since the Judge-Alone Trials Act has been in operation. There were 33 criminal cases completed in the High Court over those 10 months. 17 of those were guilty pleas. 3 were judge-alone trials. Therefore, less than 10% of the matters resolved in the last 10 months in the High Court were resolved, this is in St. Kitts, the St. Kitts Circuit, were resolved by judge-alone trial.
Highlighting the protective function of the legislation, Wilkin shared a notable example.
There's one ongoing murder trial, Madam Deputy Speaker, that has been converted to a judge-alone trial because of an unlawful attempt to influence a juror and have that juror influence others to return a not guilty verdict. The case had already taken numerous weeks of a jury trial and would have been aborted if the Judge-Alone Trials Act was not in force.
Wilkin also drew attention to complementary laws such as the Justice Interference Prevention Act of 2024, which actively pursues justice against those attempting to undermine court proceedings. He emphasized the multifaceted benefit of judge-alone trials, streamlined justice administration, juror protection, and reliance on judicial expertise to reduce errors influenced by external pressures. Quoting the CCJ Academy for Law-led Needham's Point Declaration on Criminal Justice Reform,
while the declaration acknowledges that jury trials remain the dominant mode of proceeding, it suggests that judge-alone trials should be considered where appropriate. This move, being led in the Caribbean, is being recognized throughout the world.
Responding to regional and international challenges, Wilkin underscored the urgency of the reform.
A government-commissioned review by Sir Brian Levison warns that England and Wales Crown Courts are facing collapse under a record backlog of 75,000 cases, some delayed until 2029, and recommends removing the right to jury trials, replacing them with judge-led trials, and incentivizing early guilty pleas. So we're not just doing it in the Caribbean. What we're doing in the Caribbean is being recognized and adopted internationally.
Together, these legislative advancements represent a significant step forward in St. Kitts and Nevis's ongoing efforts to ensure public safety, uphold justice, and foster a resilient society free from the scourge of gang violence and crime. By harmonizing sentencing with international norms and modernizing trial procedures, the government affirms its commitment to a justice system that is both effective and fair. In a decisive move to strengthen its fight against gang violence, the National Assembly on July 24, 2025 passed the Gang Prohibition and Prevention Amendment Bill 2025. Delivering a powerful statement during the debate, Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, emphasized the urgent need for reform to correct inconsistencies in the sentencing framework related to armed robbery and gang violence in St. Kitts and Nevis.
The lesson is clear. When a nation unites behind a coherent vision, when we act with principle, science, compassion, We can change even the most entrenched patterns of violence. Madam Speaker, this is a long road. This is a long road that we all must be committed to over the long haul. This has to become part and parcel of who we are as a people and as a country. I therefore encourage every member of this honorable House, every citizen of our federation to continue playing their role in the collective journey for a more secured St. Kitts and Nevis.
The amended bill addresses a critical anomaly in the existing sentencing laws. Dr. Drew explained that while the current legislation holds some caught with unlicensed automatic firearms liable for up to 40 years in prison, the sentence for violent robbery using that same weapon is capped at only 20 years.
This contradiction is illogical. Therefore, this short yet important amendment corrects the inconsistency by updating Section 31 of the Licensing Act. It introduces a tiered sentencing framework for robbery offenses based on the level of threat, violence, and use of weapons. It ensures that our justice system treats robbery with firearms with the severity it demands, and that sentencing is consistent with our broader reforms under the Firearms Act.
The bill sets new penalties reflecting the gravity of offenses and the definition of firearms as outlined in the modernized Firearms Act.
Robbery with a firearm can face life imprisonment with hard labor. Robbery with another type of offensive weapon, 40 years with hard labor. Robbery with accomplices, 35 years. Robbery involving personal violence, 30 years. Robbery without aggravating factors, 20 years. Assault with intent to rob, 15 years. It also demands the definition of firearm to include imitation firearms, restricted and prohibited weapons as defined in our modernized Firearms Act, Cap 1905.
Importantly, the legislation aligns St. Kitts and Nevis's sentencing laws with regional and international standards, including those of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. For the first time, life imprisonment is legally defined as 50 years, providing judges with clear direction and removing ambiguity.
In Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Lucia, the law provides for a maximum sentence of life imprisonment for armed robbery. The same is true in major Commonwealth jurisdictions such as the United Kingdom and Canada, where life imprisonment is also prescribed.
Acknowledging the profound consequences of armed robbery on victims and communities, Prime Minister Drew shared,
"Robbery is not a victimless crime. It shatters life. It can destroy confidence. It can sow fear in communities and have long-lasting psychological impact such as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, etc."
The Prime Minister underscored the critical deterrent role of increased penalties,
sending a clear and unequivocal message that society will not tolerate acts of violence that threaten public safety and undermine social order.
While acknowledging that punishment alone is insufficient to eradicate crime, he maintained that it
plays a vital role in shaping conduct by raising the cost of offending and reinforcing boundaries of acceptable behavior in our communities and in our society.
Dr. Drew urged both accountability and opportunity.
We are balancing both things. We are creating opportunities that we want our people to take. But if one were to, of course, be an affront to the law will make sure that it does its part to bring about justice and as a deterrent to those who would engage in these activities.
The amendment bill fortifies the legal framework by broadening definitions relating to gang involvement, increasing penalties for gang formation, leadership, participation, and related offenses, and introducing new crimes such as impersonating law enforcement and retaliating against cooperating witnesses or gang deserters. Fines have been raised to EC $500,000 in some cases, accompanied by prison terms of up to 40 years. New terms like retaliatory action extend legal reach to threats, property damage, and cyber harassment linked to gang retaliation. The bill also enhances prosecutorial capacity by expanding evidentiary rules to include self-admissions, gang affiliations and statements made on behalf of gangs, thus facilitating stronger court cases. Moreover, it broadens the High Court's jurisdiction and allows minors to be treated as adults in serious gang-related cases, evidencing a clear governmental commitment to robust enforcement. At the July 22, 2025 press conference, the Honorable Samuel Duggins offered the public a comprehensive update on key achievements spanning several ministries under his leadership. The minister painted an optimistic picture of progress, especially within the spheres of agriculture, fisheries, sports, small business, and the creative economy.
In agriculture, I think it's fair to say that we've done exceptional work. One thing that is clear, we have created the largest planting program since sugar, where we would have put last year over 60,000 bananas and plantains in the ground, over 150,000 pineapples in the ground. We just started distributing 15,000 coconut trees to be planted. Also, we have done extensive work across the areas of tomatoes, melons, peppers, and a number of other crops. Of course, you've heard about the Tabasco project as well.
The report underscores the scale and ambition of the Ministry of Agriculture's planting programs that mark the largest agricultural initiative since the sugar era. Turning to fisheries sector, Minister Duggins highlighted a historic milestone.
Moving on to fisheries, as you would have heard last year, we would have seen the largest income of the sector ever, being 19.6 million.
This record revenue not only signals growth in sustainable practices, but also reinforces fisheries as a vibrant contributor to national development. The cultural vibrancy of St. Kitts and Nevis was also a focal point, with Minister Duggins emphasizing the success of carnival celebrations.
We move on to carnival, where we would have seen record-breaking carnivals, where we had last year the largest visitorship that we've seen at over 14,000 persons. Most of the carnival troops were maxed out with the largest attendance ever, but we also saw an economic impact of over 21 million. And so I think that's worthy of note.
The record-breaking event highlights the Federation's growing appeal as a top Caribbean destination and the significant economic uplift from cultural tourism. On the sports front, Minister Duggins provided a detailed account of infrastructural improvements and programmatic revivals aimed at revitalizing sports across the Federation.
We have been fixing all the problem left by the last government. We have repaired the Kim Collins Stadium, which was left neglected for so long. Basketball City is now underway, which has been neglected for so long, and a number of other stadiums. We built the Connery Stadium over in Connery from scratch. We have repaired the Newtown Stadium. We have repaired the Halfway Stadium. We have done some work at St. Paul's, but there's quite a bit that we have done in fixing the problems left by the last administration.
He also noted a significant return of sports programming within educational institutions.
But beyond that, we also brought sports back into schools, where we had cricket, football, and netball reinstituted across all primary and all high schools and even the tertiary level. And that, again, had been out for some time.
The renewed focus is expected to nurture athletic talent and promote healthy lifestyles among the youth. In highlighting the achievements of the Ministry of Small Business, Minister Duggins emphasized foundational work and financial empowerment for entrepreneurs.
First of all, we created that ministry back in 2022. And we have given a mandate to the sector. And over that time, we have had the chance to work with financial institutions where hundreds of small business owners would have received financing, whether it be loans or grants in different cases. But we are also now, through our Building Bankable Businesses program, preparing another cohort of small businesses to be able to be financially capable to access financing through financial institutions.
Minister Duggins closed with reflections on the strides made in the creative sector, revealing exciting developments on the global stage and at home.
I think it's very clear what we've been doing in the creative economy. We've seen most of our artists traveling and touring in one way or another. Last year we saw small acts, grandmasters, and a number of bands doing some work around the region and also the UK and the US. Last year for Miami's Carnival, we had the largest number of local performers ever in the US at one time. And We've also seen this year De Jour and others touring as well. We've seen DJ Terror touring as well. And that was one of the commitments we made, that our artists will take to the world stage.
Significantly, Minister Duggins unveiled plans related to a major investment in cultural infrastructure.
We have also designed and we are now approaching the groundbreaking of the Creative Arts Center for the creative economy. Now that is $100 million investment into the country, and that should be breaking ground in a matter of months.
The optimistic report signals a concerted effort by the leadership of St. Kitts and Nevis to enhance economic diversification, cultural richness, and social development through targeted investments and sustained ministry-led programs. In regional news, Biodiversity Alliance deal signed in Guyana. News Source Guyana reports.
Well, Guyana, the Dominican Republic, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Ecuador are among the first signatories to the Global Biodiversity Alliance. The signing marked the beginning of a global movement and the call to action for countries and institutions to work together to protect the ecosystems that sustain life on Earth. During the launch of the Global Biodiversity Alliance, President Irfan Ali said the alliance is a rallying cry to governments, institutions, investors, communities, and citizens to acknowledge that biodiversity is the infrastructure of life, and investment in it is not a luxury but rather a necessity. As he addressed global leaders and experts at the summit, he said a global alliance is imperative.
We need a global biodiversity alliance because nature does not follow borders, and neither should our efforts to protect it. Nature is global, and so must our action be. By bringing countries, communities, scientists, and leaders together, we can share knowledge, pool resources, and tackle big problems like habitat loss and climate change faster and smarter. Together, we can protect our planet's incredible variety of life for today and tomorrow.
The alliance will pursue 5 strategic pillars, which includes advancing the 30 by 30 conservation goal, which aims to protect 30% of the world's land and ocean areas by 2030. According to the president, the alliance is not merely an environmental imperative, but an economic revolution. The alliance, he said, is committed to scaling blended finance to de-risk investment in nature-based enterprises.
We invite development banks, asset managers, impact investors, and sovereign wealth funds to join us, because financing nature is not charity, it is insurance, it is resilience. It is return on investment.
Meanwhile, the president of the Dominican Republic, Luis Abinader, in his address, said as a small island developing state, the Dominican Republic knows all too well the fragility of the ecosystem, as he lobbied the alliance to find sustainable solutions to the environmental challenges confronting small states.
At the same time, we promote the restorations of watersheds, mangrove, wetlands, and coral reef, promoting local bioeconomies and recognizing the real value of our natural capital. We do all this with a human-centered approach, placing the most vulnerable communities at the center and betting on inclusive development. However, the challenges persist. Sargassum. Sargassum is a serious threat. It affects marine life, coastal health, tourism, and artisanal fishing.
Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley said for its part, Barbados, with the help of the Barbados Wetlands Trust, has resuscitated the Grammy Hall Nature Sanctuary, which was closed for more than 16 years. She also announced that the Barbados Oceans and Coastal Authority will be established by an Act of Parliament soon.
The Barbados Oceans and Coastal Authority will be established by an Act of Parliament within the next few months. The draft bill having been completed and now being presented to Cabinet. And this will allow us to elevate the work that we must do to preserve our coastal areas, one, from the erosion of sargassum, which is deadly on our eastern coast, but two, also from the natural erosion that is taking place as a result of agricultural runoff and other factors, and which, quite frankly, threaten what is our greatest concern, the stability of our water supply
It was explained that if the island's aquifers are polluted by salt water, Barbados would no longer be able to use the aquifers for the provision of drinking water. The former president of the Republic of Colombia, Conservation International, the Center for Biodiversity and Global Change at the Yale University, the Frankfurt Zoological Society, the Keller Science Action Center, Campaign for Nature, the National Tushaus Council of Guyana, and the South Rupununi Conservation Society were among the other organizations that signed on to the alliance.
US $5.7 million CARICOM funding to boost St. Lucia's water infrastructure. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
The Water and Sewage Company, or WASCO, and the Ministry of Finance have signed an agreement with the CARICOM Development Fund, securing funding of US $5.7 million for two vital water projects. First, it will provide an additional US $800,000 supplementary loan funding to bridge a financing gap for the Pasias Water Supply Project, which was originally launched in December of 2023. This ensures the completion of the upgraded system, directly benefiting an estimated 4,700 residents across 10 communities in Micoud. When completed, in 8 months' time, it is expected to increase the daily consumption demand from 60 gallons to 80 gallons per person.
The CDF initially provided loan financing of US $1.2 million for the rehabilitation of the Pasias water supply system, so the total concessional loan financing for this project now increases to almost $2 million US. So all told, together with the financing for the Thebes water treatment plant, which is a newly approved project, this brings the total of CDF's financing for water infrastructure in St. Lucia to almost US $7 million.
Secondly, US $4.9 million will be directed towards the much-needed rehabilitation of the Phoebus water treatment plant. The funding for the Phoebus project is a mix with US $670,000 provided as a technical assistance grant and US $4.2 million as a concessionary loan. This project is vital for ensuring safe and reliable water access for over 40,000 residents in the north of the island. The aging infrastructure has seen 6 of the 10 filters at the plant malfunction due to corroded components and outdated materials, forcing reliance on inefficient water-only backwashing. As a result, the plant is functioning at roughly 40% capacity and cannot meet the demand for water in the north.
The system's declining performance is compounded, of course, by climate change, as Mr. Suma spoke of earlier, with extreme rainfall producing more turbid water and droughts limiting our raw water availability.
Infrastructure Minister Stephenson King welcomed the rehabilitation of the Thebes water treatment plant. This, he says, is just one step in improving water supply around the island by fixing damaged water infrastructure.
WASCO records some 51 to 52% of non-revenue water, which is unacceptable.
Prime Minister Philip J. made an apology on behalf of WASCO for the water issues experienced over the years. However, he notes that serious investments are being made to improve water delivery and service.
We invest $1.2 million in WASCO every month, and that has started from even January this year. And this $1.2 million, I can inform you, comes from the CIP program.
The signing ceremony for the loan grant agreement took place on Thursday, 24th July 2025 at the Finance Administrative Center. For the DBS News World, Miriam Montoot reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump appeared on Friday to have abandoned Gaza ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. That's as both said it had become clear that the Palestinian militants did not want a deal, and follows the withdrawal of their delegations from talks just a day earlier. Netanyahu said Israel was now considering, quote, alternative options to achieve two main goals, bringing hostages home from Gaza and ending Hamas's rule in the territory. Trump said he believed the group's leaders would now be, quote, hunted down.
Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die.
In a statement, US envoy Steve Witkoff blamed Hamas for blocking ceasefire negotiations, which have been mediated by Qatar and Egypt. Netanyahu agreed with Witkoff emphasizing Hamas as the obstacle to reaching a deal. However, Hamas disputed Witkoff's characterization of the talks. The group said negotiators had been making progress and suggested Witkoff's remarks were intended to exert pressure on Israel's behalf. The proposed ceasefire would have lasted 60 days. During this period, additional aid would be allowed into Gaza, and some of the remaining 50 hostages held by militants there would be freed in return for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel.
The deserted road that runs along the long border between Cambodia and Thailand. The silence broken by the boom of a heavy gun. These villagers had decided not to evacuate. They didn't want to abandon their cattle, but they spent the night in a concrete bunker with sandbags for pillows.
I heard loud bangs since 8 a.m. this morning. I don't know which direction they came from, but I was too scared to go out, so I stayed in my bunker.
Through the night, Thailand had reinforced its lines. Heavy artillery opened up after dawn. This is more than a border clash. And the Thai military released footage of drone attacks. Targeted drops on Cambodian troops, they said, but they forced thousands of civilians to flee.
I was scared and then ran away from the bullets because the bullets were so strong. I was scared. I came here to be safe. I have small children.
In ancient times, it was our temple, but the Thais were greedy and wanted to encroach on our land and wanted our ancestral temple. They are wrong.
From the Cambodian side came Grad rockets, salvos fired indiscriminately across the border into Thailand. More than 130,000 Thais have now been displaced from their homes to live in evacuation centres. An adventure for the kids running around in their new campsite. But for the senior arrivals, a reminder that even the darkest times weren't this bad.
When the Khmer Rouge were fighting, they didn't come to this side. We could stay at home. This time it's so heavy we can't even stay at home. We were told to get in the car and leave.
Donations coming into one of the evacuation centres along the Cambodian border. And there's a feeling of people coming together. Donations coming in from other parts of Thailand. Kids running around. But Thailand's Prime Minister said today that if the heavy weapons that have forced these people out of their homes don't stop soon, this border clash could escalate into a full war. And that means these people may be here for some time to come. Tony Cheng, Al Jazeera, Surin, northeastern Thailand.
Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hossam Zomlot, was consulted for that report on Gaza. Leader Abraham asked him about the importance of the findings from the Palestinian perspective.
This report is very important in really stating one major fact, that the core of all issues is Israel's occupation and it has got to end. And by the way, how simple this statement sounds, we have been missing this conversation. So for such a Foreign Affairs Committee in the Parliament to come back and put things into perspective, that's a step in the right direction. And by the way, let me say this, the report is not comprehensive, but the overall direction is in the right direction. We do need to see more active engagement by the UK. We do need to see the UK taking its responsibilities, legal responsibilities, seriously.
The committee recommends the UK recognize a Palestinian state while there is still a state to recognize alluding to the Israeli illegal settlement building. How significant is this?
That is very key. That is very key. Recognizing the state of Palestine is long overdue, particularly by the UK, given the history of Britain, the first step towards righting that historic wrong.
The committee explicitly calls on the UK, along with France, the co-signatories of the 1916 Sykes-Picot Agreement, to recognize Palestine. Can we say this is the first time a UK Parliament committee talked about the historic responsibility of the Balfour Declaration and the UK's role in that?
What is really first time is this serious attention and engagement with the issue of Palestine, the Palestinian cause, by the UK Parliament as represented by the Foreign Relations, the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now, to convene 8 extensive sessions, tens of experts, officials, ministers, ambassadors, what have you, over a period of time to come up with this report is something that we welcome.
And Mr. Zumlot, the report calls for banning settlement good imports and extending sanctions to all businesses in the occupied West Bank settlements. Is this the first time we hear that? And do you expect these recommendations to be implemented?
Well, implementation is a matter of governments, but this is not a small measure. When the Foreign Affairs Committee of the British Parliament comes up with this recommendation, very straightforward recommendation, that's a major step in the right direction. That is another serious pressure point on the government. This is not just a human rights organization or a civil society institution. This is the Parliament.
Too little, too late. That's how the committee describes the UK's role so far. How do you see that?
Saying that Britain has been always doing too little, too late is a major, major statement, and it's an accurate statement. Given that it has a seat in the Security Council, a permanent seat in the Security Council, given the relationship with Europe, with the US, with the region, yes, the UK has been doing too little, too late for a long, long time. We're talking about 108 years. I am starting the clock from the Balfour Declaration. So this is about time that such a committee in the Parliament is telling their government, move and move faster. Action is required, not just words. You may have seen the last couple of days front pages of not very left-wing oriented papers like the Daily Express having images of babies dying of starvation, is all putting pressure, including through the Parliament, all the way to Downing Street, I mean the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office.
Yuta Kato is among a growing number of Japanese voters drawn to the far-right Sensato party. Annoyed by foreigners he says are ignorant of Japan's social etiquette. Like many Sensato supporters, Kato obtains his information from YouTube and other social media sites. The party has utilized the online space to amplify its, quote, Japanese first message, helping it establish a strong foothold in an upper house election on Sunday.
I think a lot of foreign visitors don't know the rules that are obvious to us. Also, in Ginza, you see people sitting anywhere, on steps and ledges. It doesn't look good for the Japanese people living in Japan. It's kind of annoying.
Japan's foreign-born residents account for just 3% of the total population, a fraction of the corresponding proportion in the United States and Europe. But record numbers of tourists have made foreigners more visible in major cities. One of the party's policies listed on its website is to, quote, stop the silent invasion of Japan by foreign forces. While Sensato largely avoids identifying specific immigrant groups, Tokyo-based academic Romeo Mangatroni says it taps into concerns ranging from badly behaved tourists to conspiracy theories about sneaking Chinese influence.
People who read newspapers and make their decisions based on that are voting for the traditional parties, and people who are reading a lot of, either reading a lot of blogs, reading a lot of social media posts, and looking at a lot of YouTube to make their decisions, they're going more towards these anti-establishment parties.
Sensato is most popular among 18 to 39-year-olds, with men favouring the party more than women. In contrast, support for the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, which lost its majority in Sunday's election, is deepest among those aged over 70. Birthed during the COVID-19 pandemic, when they spread conspiracy theories about vaccinations, Sensato has broadened its appeal with its tough immigration policies and pledges to help households struggling with rising prices. The rise of the party has sparked a backlash by those who fear it is normalizing xenophobia. Masayuki Nabekula, member of an anti-racism group, said Sensato incites racial discrimination.
It condones violence and advocates nationalism. And it has made campaign promises that could easily condone the suppression of citizens who do not agree with them. So it is very dangerous.
The party did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and its leader has previously denied criticism that it is xenophobic. At a recent rally, supporters said they're here to stay.
I think it is simple. Everyone came to the Sanseido because they were all sick with the current political situation.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: Attorney General Garth Wilkin champions further justice reform with judge-alone trials amendment. St. Kitts and Nevis advances stronger anti-gang legislation. The Honorable Samuel Duggins highlights progress across ministries. Biodiversity Alliance deal signed in Guyana. US $5.7 million CARICOM funding to boost St. Lucia's water infrastructure. Internationally, Netanyahu and Trump appear to abandon Gaza ceasefire negotiations. Thank you for listening.